Hey guys, Joe here, and you saw the prologue video talking about what I intend to do with this NZXT H440i case, and I thought we would start by going over the even more conceptualized plan, wow, that was a word that didn't come out right, as well as a couple of changes I made since I uploaded the video that I believe will actually be much better for the entire build. So let's start with what you saw yesterday, as soon as I get the case to turn without falling over. This is the NZXT H440i. You can see a picture of it right here. And normally it's covered by this steel plate, which is, you know, blocking all the airflow. In fact, the only airflow the front normally gets is from those little holes going down the side there. Well, I'm improving that by cutting open the plastic, which required me to remove, you know, some material, and I still have to go over to my father's house, file all that down, and then mark and cut this plate because it's going to have a similar hole that will just be covered with, you know, wire mesh or a filter of some kind, which will free up enough room to not only give more airflow, but it'll also allow me to do push-pull in here. Now, let's move on to the second thing I intend to do, which is basically duplicate the front on the top. Because of the cases that I have, only my H440 actually supports 360 up top as well as 360 in the front. Now, there's going to be a couple of extra mods once it's all done, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But the next thing I want to talk about is this panel. Normally, the hard drive cages mount to that, but it's very unnecessary nowadays when you have SSDs, hence the SSD mounts, as well as the fact that I can mount those any way I want to, including on a custom backplate I've decided to work on. But my intention are as follows. Now, because I can fit push-pull here, I've decided I'm actually going to mount a second radiator here, or third, fourth, you know what I mean. So first thing we have to do today is remove this side panel. Now it's held in with 2 rivets here and 2 rivets that are actually underneath where my finger is. I actually have to, I think, take off, nope, there's the other rivet right there. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take off this piece and I'll be back after I do, because obviously I'm not filming with my camera and tripod because reasons. Turns out there's actually 4 more rivets, but it's really easy to do once you start the removal process. So I'm just gonna go ahead and knock out those 4. Be back with you. Mr. Tricky Vicky. There's actually 1 extra screw in here that holds this front panel in, but otherwise nice and loose. So I'm gonna go remove that, and then I will remove this panel, and we will move on to showing you what my intentions are with this case. So once you've removed that side panel, you'll see you've opened up all your room completely, which is a good thing because, well, you'll see in a minute. Stage 2. With this removed, it allowed me to have access to in here without having to, perform the old reach around. And I've mocked up what my intentions are. As you can see, well, if I'd stopped getting my own damn light, is I've moved the fan over as far as it can this way, and I'm gonna have to do a little bit more trimming possibly, so that I can get the 360 to fit there, because normally it would be all the way over to here, but that takes up too much of the room that I need for a rear mount radiator. Now, obviously I'm just doing this to gauge width and size and whatnot, but I think it's going to work fine, because obviously this radiator has its, when it's the 360, will be with the inlet outlet up there, and this radiator, when it's mounted, will have its inlet and outlet down here, which will allow me to avoid, running into each other, which will, as you can see, leave me plenty of room when I mount the radiator on the back of the tray, which will require a little bit of massaging, but I'll do that later, which will allow me to run a regular fan. Now, I am going to have to run a slim radiator, as this is a 35 millimeter. It's thicker than standard. It's not a slim, so I'll get a slim radiator, which will then fit behind the back plate, and it will be running in just push going this way. Haven't decided if I'm going to have enough room to run push-pull on that one, and then obviously I'm going to mount one up there, one back there. So It's going to wind up having a lot of radiator when I'm done, because you've got 720, 1080, 1300 millimeters of radiator will be in there, which is more than double what I currently have in my system. So yeah, that's that progress coming along. The next update will be of finishing this panel. Like I said, I'm going to do a little bit different trimming here, maybe bring up that line to that top of the drill hole that I put in there, because it's on both sides anyways. That way it'll give enough room for the fan to completely clear, and then we will keep going. Alright, day 2, and I've decided to switch to the actual camera for this next set of work. And as you can see, I've taken the top off of the case, as well as, you know, started correcting some of the issues that I had with this one, so now it completely clears the front fans. But what I want to show you next is basically how we're going to do this. So normally this is how this sits here, as you can see. So what we're going to basically be doing is just taping off and then using a Dremel to cut out the main shape, and then we'll probably come back with something like a hand file. I have to go over to my father's house and grab that still. A hand file and a metal saw for the cover. But I've also decided to change the color as well, but we'll do that afterwards. One thing to keep in mind is that because this has the power button, reset button, and all your I/O up front, you have to be a little bit more careful where you drill or cut, because you could damage where that is. But thankfully there's actually guides in here. As you can see right here, this is actually the same point as that. So as long as you use that as a line, go over to here and then down to the bottom lines, which are right here and right here, you should be able to get a clean cut. That does all right. In fact, it'll probably be a little bit farther back, probably about there. So what I'm going to do is just take some masking tape and just kind of mark out how far back each one is. Now this is very rough. All the finalization will be done with filing and sandpaper. So basically all I'm going to do is just use a piece of masking tape and mask off where the holes basically are. So to do that, we slide this back into its approximate position, front to back, not obviously side to side. And then we see where our mounts are. And basically you're going to use the width of this masking tape, which appears to be 2 inch, and just mask it off that way. And I'll be a little bit more precise when I'm done. I believe this is 2 inch. Why would it say? I don't know. I'll come down here. We'll come down to the bottom and do the exact same thing. It looks like just the width of this masking tape will be perfect. Now we just need to move it back over and we'll find the sides. This is a little bit narrower, but not by much. So now that we have it masked off roughly, and again this just needs to be roughed in because there's a metal plate that goes over it that's more important than this plastic underplate. But the plastic underplate will wind up being the template for the metal plate. You'll see what I mean. But yeah, next thing to do is whip out the old Drem and get to work. Obviously this is but for demonstration purposes, but as you can see, now the fans will have completely open air to exhaust out of, and I'm thinking if I go with some slim fans on top, I can run push-pull, but that has not been completely decided yet. The next step is to go grab a file and whittle all these edges down nice and smooth, and then we are going to change the color of these plastic panels as well as prep the metal panels for their modification. So that will be the next part you see. Having roughed it in with a file, doesn't have to be perfect because this sits underneath the metal piece, so the metal will have to be perfect, but I smoothed down the edges. The next step is to grab some paint. In this case I'm going to use Plasti-Dip because it will dry flat, and just go ahead and do those up. Next time you see these parts, they will be back in here and just kind of sitting, so be back in a minute or 8. As you can see, I've taken it from its previous red and changed it up using Plasti-Dip just because it's easier to use, and if I don't like it later I can always take it back off. I've now taken masking tape, just regular masking tape since this is not the Plasti-Dip thingy. I'm super technical. And I've marked off where the opening is on the plastic undersheath. However, I've left a little bit of a margin, so the steel plate when it's cut will go over it. So next thing I got to do is drill some pilot holes and get my saw in there and start cutting. However, I have to do it by hand, so it's going to take like an hour, so I'm not going to torture you guys with an hour of me doing it, but yeah, here goes. 1 hour was 3 hours wrong. Now keep in mind guys, I'm doing this with just hand tools and a Dremel, but a Dremel can't cut through steel without destroying discs, so I'm using a handsaw and then a hand file and then patience. But you know, don't forget this is getting painted, so it's not going to stay like that, but at least you get an idea what it's going to look like from the top. And then I'm going to backlight it on this side, obviously, put some LEDs up under here, and then it's going to be cool there. Now when I finish with the front panel, it's going to resemble the top, however it's a larger opening because I need to make sure I get enough air through here to feed the radiator that's going on the back. But yeah, day 1 progress has been made. I think it's coming along well. I still have to devise a new back plate or side panel that's going to allow it to hold the radiator as well as be separate from the wiring compartment, and that's going to be a bit of a pain in the my butt-ski to figure out, but you know what, got nothing but time. This isn't a client build or a friend build or anything like that. This is a fun build for me, and when it's done I think it's going to be pretty damn awesome. So that's today's video. If you like it, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, click over here for more videos, and until next time, I'll talk to you later.